let's just ask a couple of just a 1-3 question then, since we sort of got through all the things. Thinking about it, do you notice the activity of blending in when you encounter these social situations? This immediate blend, like some people come riding in on a storm, some people ride in this way. You guys ride in chameleon like. Do you notice that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna say for me, as a manifester, I do tend to linger at the edges of places, and I think that, like, I'm not a fifth line. I don't carry a lot of fifth line energy, so quite frequently, I think I'm unnoticed, but I am noticed. But I do tend to kind of occupy the edges of spaces, unless I'm the one who's like presenting something. If it's for me, then I turn on. But if I'm entering into a space, I typically I kind of edge in, for sure.
For me, it really depends on whether or not I know the people. If it's a brand new environment, social situation, I also have a wide open G center, so I kind of like chameleon myself and observe and sense the environment and see if I can fit in, if it's an environment I want to be in or not. And I do a lot of listening and quiet observing. But when I do speak up and go to hold space, I notice I tend to get a lot of attention.
Yes, an attraction from people towards your energy, I think, because that's how I take in social situations as well. It's baby steps, and I will be that observer, but there's just something about the energy, and people are receptive to that, and so they'll come around, and that will be that initiation, and that's where I'll open up more, and so that I find that to be really beautiful in its own way.
I always scan. Just always, every single time. Yeah, I know. But, and there's, before human design and this paradigm, I have a Scorpio ascendant, which would do that. I grew up in a million different countries and different schools, and it's almost a survival skill. It's automatic. But once I figure out the rules of the group, because they all have them, all tribes, all groups have some kind of rule. And I'm like, oh, I like this set of rules, or I don't. And if I don't, I don't engage. And if I do, it usually goes well. Until the too many people want attention, and then I gotta go. It's just too much. I gotta go. But yeah, every single time, and it doesn't matter if it's online or elsewhere. I know I'm always like, what's the rule? What's going on? How does this system function? So
for the longest time, I have that Virgo rising. For the longest time, I would go into spaces and I would be really drawn to the human behavior aspect of it and want to analyze. I actually am a behavior scientist. That's what I do. That's my day job. But I would go to environments that were dysfunctional and love it. And I just wanted to change every little piece of it and transform it, almost amplify that whole amplification thing with the reflector is this is what you need to look at. And with urgency, and then, see some changes, but then I noticed that if they don't like me, they throw me out, so it's there's this totem effect. It's oh no, now I've become the community and now they want to get rid of me because they don't want to go to the place that I want to take them. There's this experimental aspect that's very strong, which is very dominant, and then there's this reflector aspect, which is very I am the community. I feel everything that they're feeling. I'm so receptive to them. So it's it's duality in full force. That's the experience for me.
wow.
I just want to say one more thing about that. Yeah, I don't usually get folded in. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that my only channel is the 4521, and I have the 45 twice. I think I started to figure out people thought I was coming in to take their tribe. I'm I don't want your tribe. I'm just here to visit. And another weird thing I have noticed that has happened to me on a few occasions I've gone to places. I'm like in my. I realize as a manifestor, I'm always ready to leave, and so I'm always listen. I'm ready to go, and so I'll occupy the edges. And I remember one time going to a party, and a friend of she wasn't a friend yet. I didn't even know her. We started talking. We're at the edge of the party. Everyone, I missed the party being with her. Turns out she was a reflector. She knows human design. Like she had been in human design years before and she didn't even tell me. Like we didn't talk human design at the time. We were just having a ball. And it's like, I'll get to the edge and sometimes find a reflector there. That's happened to me. Also in Santa Fe at the human design conference this last year. It was just the weirdest thing. I walked through this house. I'm all the way at the edge. I'm like, okay, there's nowhere else to go. And there's just me and a person there. And we vibing so hard. And I have this whole surprising experience because I see something I didn't expect to see, which was grapes. So I had this amazing surprise of these grapes I had seen earlier appeared on this table. And I was like, I saw these grapes earlier and I wanted them, but I didn't eat them because they were in someone's cart. And it was just this amazing thing. And it was another reflector. So I thought that was kind of fun.
You saw grapes in someone's car and wanted to eat them?
So we were like, if you ever go to the conference in Santa Fe, it was in a few different locations. So we were at someone's house and we were leaving to go to another venue and a hatchback was open. And I'm like, damn, those are some juicy looking grapes. And I just remember they were like oblong and sweet looking. And I'm like, I want those grapes. And so later on at this party, that's where they were going. I was going to that party and so were they. Together, I would have been fine with the grapes anyway. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cute.
It was a fun time.
I love it. That's so cool.
There's something real important to notice with all of this. I love the vibrancy of the conversation you're having, but let's just put everything on a solid footing. This is a genetic way. So when I ask you these questions and you guys notice certain similar experiences, recognize 1/12 of the planet, it's actually a little bit more, is literally living out a similar experience with you. And then the more you know about your design, start to know about design, the more you can start to just totally recognize, oh my God, we're interconnecting in these ways that we can keynote, we can discuss, and they keep repeating. For children, it's amazing. For people in settings, it's all this thing. And you guys at the tip of the spear with your first lines, the primary direction of humanity is towards something in the I Ching called beauty. It says called the chase towards beauty, where money isn't everything. That was the translation of the I Ching line. And it's just, beauty has no other words. You can't describe red with any other words. It's red, you can put a few things in there, and it's the first line discovers that and incorporates it into part of the foundation. Now you'll start to see that as an aspect everywhere in your life as you start to realize, there's something about the beauty that is or is not there. And it's something foundational you guys are getting. And it's genetic. We're imbued with it. You guys are. The next question here, if I may, unless anyone has a comment, have you noticed a discomfort, sometimes a deep discomfort, when being asked to move forward on something that you don't feel you have a solid foundation on?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
And I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom's a manifestor, and so she's always going. She's either leaving or going or doing or something, and sometimes we vibe because I'm the combo, the manifesting generator. But if she never understood why I was like, I know I'm not ready to do that. Whatever the hell it was, it doesn't matter. Like, and the chronic sense of I'm not prepared. She never understood that. Like when I went to college, I went to learn how to think because I was convinced I didn't know how, even though I probably outthought, actually I was a very good thinker, and, but I was like, no, that's my job right now. I have to learn how to think. I have to learn how to do all this stuff. And I was speaking a very different language than anybody else. And I think part of it was that I got pushed into doing a lot of stuff I wasn't prepared for. But it made a very good 1-3, So I majored in philosophy because I was like, oh, I got to go in wisdom. What's that? What do I do? How do I pull this together? How do I make an argument? And then I went to law school because then I had, but now I do energy medicine because, none of that shit worked out. Yeah.
All of it actually worked out really.
Yeah. In the long run, it did. But deep. I totally remember that deep discomfort of being pushed into something that I'm not prepared for. And it always blows up in my face.
Yeah. If I'm being asked to do something and I don't have a secure foundation, a good example of this in my life is my sister. She is a very, very busy generator, and she's always doing this thing and that thing and this thing, and all, like, she has all these different projects going on. And if she doesn't give me a secure foundation to move forward and to help her, she really wants my energy. She really wants my support. I won't move. My sacral isn't responding. And on top of that, I have emotional authority. So I really need to take my time before moving into things. And that's really new for me. I used to be a very impulsive person. I have gate 29 twice, which is the gate of the abyss coming out of the sacral that says yes to everything. And just like you said, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Me?
Yeah.
Kristen,
yeah, just like you said, it'll just blow up in my face. And I've moved into this space of just needing to wait through my emotional waves and needing to ask a lot of questions before I make any kind of decision to move into any direction.
Right. It would be like a fragmentation moving forward because you don't have the full picture of anything that you're doing at that moment. And for me, it was a lot of that growing up, where I would just push myself to the next thing without having that foundation prior, and it would just cause turmoil. And I noticed it takes me a while to get that full picture. Others are just like moving forward and they don't mind. They're just like, okay, on to the next thing. But I do want to take that time. And I've learned to forgive myself for being different than others. And the human design aspect of things has helped to feel more content in that nature.
I would like to say that, okay, first of all, as a manifestor, I just don't like to be asked to do anything. I mean, I'm so serious, guys. Like, it has gotten, I'm a radical experimenter with human design, and I actually lead other manifestors in that to be as radical as possible. Shout out to there's a projector I met that really kind of set me on the path. Like, he was just so wild with it. I was like, Brayton Belazzo, if you guys know this guy on Instagram, he's wild and I love him. And I mean, I had already been doing some pretty extreme experimentation, but I don't really like to be asked. But my my sun and both my Plutos are in gate 48. So it's actually kind of got a base of uncertainty. So even though I'm a 1-3, I feel like my mind would like to be certain, but my authority moves me absolutely into the void constantly. And I have to trust it. And then also, like, my conscious sense is also uncertainty. So I think for a long time I grasped at certainty, but right now I am really experimenting with moving in uncertainty and allowing the bumping and the moving to actually clarify the picture. So, like, clarity through motion, because I have 7 open centers, and my money line is conscious. So I almost, like, I don't trust it all the time because I realize it's working for other people. And so I'm just allowing myself to be in flow. And so I have released a lot of the need for certainty, but I watch my mind grasp for that. And I'm just like, look at you, little crazy little monkey, look at it go. And that's my mind.
It took a long time for me to learn to just throw spaghetti at the wall and call it a Picasso, and then, like, move a noodle. Like, who's going to kill you? You know, you're not going to die. The world isn't going to end. It's just a noodle, you know, and if you screw up, you're not out clubbing baby seals or, you know, doing something insane and immoral or whatever the attendant crappy feelings that go with, like, oh, that wasn't a success. It took me a long time to learn that it's nothing means anything. Like, really, in the long run, it just really doesn't. And all right, whatever, you know, just roll with it. But that took a long time, and a lot of heartache to get there. To just be like, it's a noodle, move it.
I don't even know how to answer this question because I feel like I'm never comfortable. It's crazy. Like
Yeah, you're
there's a
comfortable with being
lot of
uncomfortable. Yeah.
people who say to me, like, and they're reflectors, and they're like, find your peace, find your state, find your country, just go move there, go on a mountain. And I'm
What?
just like, like I just have this constant need for information. I'm like, if somebody tells me to do something I don't want to do, like I get excited. Like that feels more uncomfortable and it feels better for me. I know that it sounds probably off and it sounds weird, but all the centers are open and I'm so used to the energy coming and that discomfort that like to do nothing or to feel solid almost feels too like off for me. It's not my normal. So yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's amazing listening to you guys. Thanks for that, Jacqueline. I appreciate that. Next question is, and it's really, I have two questions I'm going to put together here. Let's see. Have you been told you need? Okay. First question, before I get this is going to be two-parter to get a lot of stuff just sort of talking about. Third lines, unconscious, have a bonding strategy in the way you will share your intimate self. And your intimate self is like, I'm willing to lean in and talk about myself with this other person. That's an intimate act. So everything, the whole panacea of what that would be, is designed to make and break bonds. And that can be very disconcerting because there can be this anarchist behind it all that wants to get away. And then on the other side of getting away, there can be this sense of, did I get away too quick? Did I go away? Did I make it too permanent? And I'm just wondering if any of you guys have a sense of that, because genetically, the third line is the mutative line. Obviously, it's designed to keep the genome of humanity being mixed up. You third lines mix it up. And so that was just one aspect. Bonds made and broken as a strategy for just bonding, all types of bonds with people. How has that worked out in your life? And then the question that's here is, this is a common one. Have you been told too many times or plenty of times or enough times where it's noticeable how you make mistakes? Has it been called a mistake? Has there been certain disappointments that have come to you from the elders in your life as you were growing up, or things that caused certain, insecurities to rise up? How is the concept of mistakes and, quote, getting it wrong shown up while you were growing up, at school, in your own mind about your own self?
I feel like he got cut off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was a mistake. No. I'm gonna listen. I'll start this one out. Look, I don't know. I guess in a lot of ways, I grew up really with a very supportive mother. My father, who's also a manifestor, of course, he didn't know that. I got the chance to tell him while he was still with us in the body that he was a manifestor, and it kind of like gave me closure around some things. But I was definitely given a lot of leeway because I grew up in an imperfect world with imperfect people. So everything was imperfect. And it was just kind of like an expectation. So I never really felt all of that guilt and martyrdom, but I did feel as though I was like a late bloomer, or like I launched late. Like I was in remedial math all through middle school, and then went to high school and was in advanced maths, and it just didn't make any damn sense. It was like, okay, what happened here? So I do feel as though my timeline was just strange. It just felt like I was maturing slower. And then once I learned more about human design and understood with like the 1-3, and I look at like my 6-line friends, and I'm like, look at you doing stuff. You grow up. I don't grow up. Like, what is going on here? I feel like a child. I always feel like I'm in this state of discovery. So I don't really look at things as mistakes. I've always looked at them as ways to learn. And that's all I've been doing. And I was just really lucky. I think being a manifestor, having this aura around me, people wouldn't say things like that to me. They just, and it wasn't, I'm not scary, guys, I promise. I even got my gallbladder out when I was 20. Like it really took the edge off. But like I was not like a rage monster, but there was something that kind of buffered people away from giving me that kind of feedback. And I was allowed to just bump around and not feel bad about it.
That's so comforting listening to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You can go ahead if you want to.
I've talked a lot. Go ahead, girl. It's all good.
I feel naked everywhere I go. I don't have a buffer. So it's like someone can say the smallest or meanest, like it just, I feel everything. And it sounds so awesome to have a buffer. So that, and the idea of making mistakes, most of the time I realize, oh, that's not my mistake. That's their projection, you know, like that. I didn't actually do anything. That's just them seeing themselves in me. But yeah, I think we're all human. We all do make mistakes. And I've definitely made mine, and I think that when we're sensitive, those mistakes, sometimes it comes through like I'm trying to reach for like reflector terms to make sense of it. But in my experience, it might not even have to do with reflector, but more like there's this cycle of emotion going on, and it's like a tidal wave. And the mistakes might have to do with that more so than like just human behavior. It's just, it's hard to explain, I guess, to even put into terms that there's always a reason why the mistake is made. And sometimes the reason is to discover that that's not yours. Like, if that makes sense. Like that's always the experience for me.
I agree that makes a lot of sense, because it, for me, was a change in perception over time. And it was a lot of that, people projecting themselves onto me. Because the first mistake that I had growing up was growing up closeted, and that being the mistake. And growing up in a non-practicing Catholic home, they still had that, their foundation in Catholicism, and then projecting that onto me. And over time, my perception changed, and so did much of the world's too. And so that's helped in noticing that, yeah, the mistakes do come and go, but it's a change in our own perception of them. And so there's these actions, there's these behaviors that we all take part of. And over time, those change, and how we see them changes.
I as I've gotten older, I realized I guess you could say that I was weird. I was like both like a late bloomer and very smart at the same time. And I suck at math too. But then I can do conceptual physics, like you can't stop me. And there's other things that I'm amazing at, but if you want me to balance a checkbook, I have a headache, leave me the fuck alone, there's a calculator. And I get really belligerent because I have math trauma. But I know my learning style. I guess now that I'm older, I can say, one, I don't really make a lot of mistakes. I think people did, and I got a lot of weird programming because it was like the 70s in LA. And but I got a lot of what did you do to create it? And I think that with my 1-3, I was like, I don't know what I did. What are you talking? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm 8, and it was a very heady thing. And it was like the 70s progressive manifestation movement, the seeds of it, and est and all that. And it was very harsh. Like everything you did seemed like a freaking mistake. So I think I was pretty neurotic in some ways. So instead of being a hippie, I was a punk. And that was much more comfortable for me in a lot of ways. But now that I'm older and I look at what my style is, I embrace the suck because I know I'm not going to know it. Front load the friction because it'll be there anyway. And I know that when I learn something new that's big, and I like to learn big, complex things, I don't like to learn small, little things. I will go through a period where I'm in the weeds. And I don't know what's going on, but I know I have to keep going forward. And as long as I keep going forward, I'm going to get over past the weeds, I'll be able to see the sunlight and the land will be there. And then I'll start walking. And I also know now when I most feel like I'm in the weeds is right before I'm about to make a breakthrough. And when I was younger, I think I would like perceive that as I'm too stupid or whatever. Because my mom's a manifestor and she just get up and go does things, you know, and go, I'm going to go to Africa for 6 months. Why? I have to work. Do you have a job? No. What do you mean? I'm going to get one when I get there. All right. You know, and I'm 11. We're moving to Botswana? Yes. Why? Because I don't know. Okay. So she would just get up and do things. And I was the one that was slower and more methodical. And so my pattern of needing to be in the weeds and fully saturated in a thing before I've mastered it. And I generally do end up mastering it. I think it looked very chaotic to her. And I heard that message that I was too slow. I was too stupid. You know, not stupid. She would never say that. But I just got the impression that I wasn't doing it right. But now I really love my process. You know, and it's taken me some really wild places. I'm an energy medicine practitioner, and my clients say you're a master energy practitioner. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, no, you totally are. Oh, I didn't know. I'm usually the last to know that I'm really good at something because I'm more focused on finding it. So I don't know if that's where I turn that into a strength in the long run, that it's going to be hard, embrace the suck, get it done, and then you'll be amazing.
Yeah, I can really relate to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To needing to embrace the suck and needing to go through the weeds, and you know, usually when it sucks the most, that's when things are about to get better and clearer, and you have to go through that grimy, grungy process. And like
goodness,
swim
yes.
through the murky waters before you can actually get your head above water and like see what's going on.
And you know what? You'll never go back. Like
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person that jumps back in that shitty pond. Whereas like other people are like, what are you doing? You've already been there. And I'm like, oh no, I'm done. Done, delivered, over. Where's the next pond? I'm not doing the same thing twice.
Yeah, let's move up and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as mistakes and me, I used to just beat myself up silly over the head whenever I'd make a mistake. And I'd carry that around like a ball and chain. Like, oh, I made this mistake, so I'm a shitty person because I made this mistake. And, you know, I would learn from that and I would never make that mistake again, but it would still be a weight that would hold me down. And finding human design and like really leaning into it has been so liberating for me, especially in the last year or two, of just being able to forgive myself and hold that space for myself of like, oh, I made this mistake. This is part of my learning process. And that's okay because I found out all of these things and I don't need to carry this around with me anymore. As long as I'm better in the future, I'm better now because I made that mistake. And a lot of the time, like when I was a child, I'd make a mistake and my dad would just berate me with it over and over and over again. And like nobody knew that I made that mistake more than me, and I didn't need that. And I would get very angry with him when he would do that. And then my sister, who did a lot of raising, a lot of disciplining for me in my life, she would try to teach me something and I would mess it up the first, 5 times, however many times it takes before I get it right. And she would like take the thing from me and then do it for me. And then that just led me to feel very inadequate and like I was incapable and I couldn't do that thing, like kind of taking away that natural process from me. And now I kind of embrace mistake making, especially when it comes to art. Like I just like, you know what, if I mess something up, like turn it into a happy accident. Like that's going to be part of the piece now. And I do believe Danny also asked the question about like making and breaking bonds, even though it's not written down there. Do you guys recall that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. For me, it's really difficult to break bonds. It's super difficult. I also have an open spleen with a hanging gate 28 in it. So like I tend to hold on to things that are no longer good for me. And it takes me a while to realize that it's okay for this bond to break and that door can just be a little bit open. And if that person's correct for me to come back into my life, then that's correct. And again, I feel like it's becoming more and more comfortable for me to have bonds be broken and just ride with that. Like, it's no longer correct for me. I can move on and create new relationships. And that's becoming an easier process for me to move through and for me to deal with these days. But it's still hard for me to hold the scissors and cut that cord. Like, somebody else has to initiate that first for me in my life.
That's interesting. I had to learn that. I have a defined spleen. But once I learned it, I was like, oh, this is fascinating. Awesome.
And I'm gonna jump in and just really quickly say I do wild stuff with bonds. Like, so right now I'm sitting in my apartment. 2.5 miles away from here is my house where my partner lives. He's a sacral authority manifesting generator with a defined spleen. I love that man, but he's over there and I'm over here. And we were sleeping separately, but that apparently wasn't enough. I needed my own space. So being able to, I do have, as a manifestor, the power to initiate some new different types of remaking the bond in a different way. We don't just come back together the same way. We've come back together in a completely different way. And it has, like, you know, I have to say, like, it's really nice that he trusts me, because to me, that was the sacral saying yes to this craziness. It is kind of crazy, but yeah, just, and like I said, 7 open centers. I've had to go through a lot of the open centers very radically to get myself to the point where I can really live the ego authority. It's been a trip.
As a manifesting generator with a defined spleen, that would be ideal. I can totally understand living a couple, you know, having this lifelong relationship. In fact, I could say that I have a lifelong relationship with someone 3,000 miles away. Okay.
He loves it, but he's all like, I hate this. And I'm like, bro, you love it. I can tell. You see this? You can smell out it, like a satisfied sacral, like delicious. I can smell it. So it's good.
You know, I don't think it's cool. I'm a space person. I need a lot of space and freedom. And relative to breaking bonds, I think part of the fail forward of a 1-3 for me, it shows up in relationships because when I'm failing forward, I'm also growing, and then I've kind of outgrown whoever that bond is. And when I was younger, I would feel really guilty because bonds are supposed to last forever, and they were supposed to do this and supposed to do that. And then over time, it was like my skin felt too small, and I hated it. I really, really hated it. But I wanted to be loyal. I wanted to be dependable. That's a really big thing for me. And then eventually, I was like, that is just strangling me, and probably them, because I would start to resent them and feel bad. You know, and their process is different. And I'm never going to be completely stable if I'm in a constant learning state. And I need someone who can understand that and give me space to do it.
I think I had a lot of that growing up as well, where the bond just wouldn't serve me anymore. And that's where I would have to step back and then return and have that bond be different than it was in the past. And so like relationships with partners that just no longer serve me or them, I would break it off. And then because I was also a people pleaser, I would want to still maintain some sort of relationship. So I would find a way to change it and keep them in my life, but in a different way, to exchange energy in a different fashion.
Mm-hmm. Some can do that. Relative to making mistakes, I know I ended up surrounding myself with people when I was younger that knew exactly what they wanted to do for like the rest of their lives. Like, you want to be an architect, and they did. And then this person wanted to be a doctor. That person wanted to be a CPA of all things, and they were like, "What do you want to do?" I have no idea. Just passionate about what I do.
No, like, qualms breaking stuff off. Because I feel people's energy so much. It's like, I gotta leave. You know, like, it's just to find myself again. Like, I really don't. And then I don't have any issue with breaking it off. I really don't. But when it comes to mistakes, and I wanted to say this before, like, as a scientist, if you think of each mistake as you're getting closer to the truth, then your perspective shifts. But if you think of a mistake as a trauma, it's unnecessary for learning. And so like the idealism inside of me is like, mistakes are not necessary if you have a good teacher. If you have a teacher who knows what's going on, who sees everything and has been there, then you're in good hands and you shouldn't be making those mistakes. Like a good teacher knows how to set you up so you don't have to have the trauma. And like that's been my 1-3 journey is like that's the experimenter, that's the scientist, and like that is what behavior analysis is. It's how do we teach so that this person doesn't get ostracized from society? How do we teach so that we can create more inclusive societies, more inclusive businesses, more inclusive family structures so that people don't have to be shamed because they don't know better? How do we teach them better to be better people? You know, that's hard because a lot of people, they're stuck in their patterns and they get rewarded. They get rewarded for being dysfunctional, you know? But imagine if we created systems that weren't just based off of pleasure, where people could embrace the discomfort and shift their perspective around, okay, this wasn't it, but we're going to actually pass the baton because we're going to increase our knowledge and we're going to increase our evolution because we're united and we're going forward. You know, like I think that's cutting edge 1-3 stuff. Like that's, for me, that's like what it embodies. Mistakes are, it matters. It's how you perceive the mistakes. If there's shame tied to it, then it's not necessary. Like, and you're just not around the right teachers.
I honestly haven't had any super solid teachers throughout my life. It's really been just me learning on my own, teaching myself things. I will say very recently, though, I've found some amazing teachers, and I've had good friends that have been really good teachers to me. And also, I want to add about breaking bonds. In some relationships, like Kevin said, like I will try to rework that relationship so much and like try to recreate the bond in different ways. And then I have reached points in several relationships where it's like, this is done. And then then I have no issue just being like, nope, no more. I'm cutting all communication with you. And this is the end. Like it's just reached such a toxic point where it's not good for you. It's not good for me. And I'm sorry you can't see that, but I have to do what's right for both of us.
This is all good stuff. What's it like having a natural proclivity towards anarchy? Now, anarchy is a wide word, right? Okay, so let's break that down. We had to pick words, guys. It's got no choice. Got to go with a word, but flesh it out. Towards anarchy, tearing down that which has a faulty foundation, that which just you thought it was good or something seemed good, or you rolled up on it and noticed something was just not right, and there becomes this a little boxer that's like an anarchist. What's that been like? What's it like having this proclivity show up in your life? People, that's the thing that gets you martyred, that and what would be considered the mistakes, you know what I mean? Which aren't. You guys can't make a mistake. There's no such thing as a mistake for a third line. It's just, what did you learn? We rely on that, just like the cell phone. I'm certain there was a few thousand of those things before we got the perfect little iPhone or whatever, right? So, what's it like having this proclivity? It's genetic in you. We rely on you guys to do that. The world needs our third lines to tear things down. And there's the anarchist that shows up there. What's that been like in your life?
When I was a kid, my dad raised me on the movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it, if any of our viewers have seen it, but the movie Pink Floyd, The Wall, from like the age of 5. Like my dad, he was like, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to show you what the world's really like." So that bred the anarchist within me. And I have always leaned into that of just like, oh, this isn't working, I'm gonna tear that down. Like all throughout high school, I was like, the system, like tear it down. It ain't working. Like, like we need a whole new system in place, and that still lives in my heart. Like my senior school picture for like our lunch cards, I was wearing an anarchy T-shirt. Like that was my jam. It always has been my jam. Like stirring the pot, mixing things up, shifting the foundation around. Like anarchy, I resonate with that.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's already been touched upon too, with much of what we've been saying with the mutation change and how we need to be going from one social circle to another to like mix it up, as you said, and stir that pot. And I think Jacqueline, you were mentioning too how you're so sensitive to these energies, so you know it too when something's off, and you have that drive to change it. And I think that resonates with all of us, and it's just interesting to see that we all do have a little bit of that in us, where we just see something that's off, and we're okay as long as for me at least, when I have that initiation, I'll absolutely open up. But before that, I probably would be a little bit insecure about it. I'll hold off until I get that invite, and then I'll be like, "Oh, you're doing this wrong, honey. This is not the way. Let's go about it a different fashion and raise our energy vibration, because that's what's needed right now." And so I'm glad that there's a lot more of us out there to do.
As a musician, like I go out into places and amplify this angst, and it feels so good. Like it feels like that's where I need to be. I'm not going to play the little role that people are projecting onto. I actually have to rise up in this transformative, break the foundation. Like I'm driven for that, So I think we can all resonate with that in some way.
I do love this. So what I have found is I'm like I walk a little bit of a tightrope with this, because you've heard the term like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's very easy for us to I can go too far very easily. The Kali energy is strong within me, and also I have lots of deafness gates, so I'm not always listening to other people. I'm just kind of plowing ahead. But for me, what the mutation, what it looks like with this, being able to be an anarchist and tearing down faulty foundations, is kind of what is left after you've destroyed the thing. Is we don't know exactly what to replace it with, but it leaves this space for something more beautiful to come in. So we kind of spoke earlier about I have to walk in uncertainty. And I did that with my relationship. I didn't know what was going to come after I got this new place. I didn't know, guys. I was I remember just sitting there in this a ball of angst. I'm like, hey, okay, so this is going down because of reasons. And it wasn't well received by the minds, right? So when we're talking, we're having conversation, that's just the minds. The meeting of the minds is ridiculous. It's like a circus. Two monkey minds meeting is ridiculous. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew I had to make the space. So it's literally like demolishing a building, and you don't have plans for anything to replace that structure. And I use that analogy. I'm from Detroit, and I've watched a city disappear, and I'm watching it reappear. And it's reappearing in a new form, an amazing form. Like green space is popping up in a place that used to be a 2 million person city that was all industrial and very populated. Now there's space for green space. So I realized that sometimes when we are being the anarchists, all we're doing is doing demolition to clear space and then allowing whatever is supposed to come.
It's like sowing the seeds for the future. It's like a Phoenix Rising situation.
I felt that. I felt your thought, because as soon be right when you said it, I was sowing the seeds. I felt it coming.
Yeah. Very, very much in that fashion, feeling the energies.
and there are certain seeds that only will come and open after a fire has come through. Mm-hmm. Now, just to let you guys know, because I'm in Detroit, our city motto it's in Latin, but it says it's basically, it will rise from the ashes Basically the city has to burn for its next form to come. So I am really relating to that energy. Like we do that, but you have to burn the ground. You have to burn it. I love burning things. I love fire, but like, you have to burn it, So.
I have always been a rabble rouser, always fighting for the underdog. I always wanted to tear down the systems that would, oppress, suppress, repress that one person who was just minding their own business. And then people would, kids are mean. They pounce on them, literally and figuratively. And then as I got older, I think that same pattern became about groups. And I find groups very painful. And I think this is part of it, that I'll hit a point where I'll be like, we got to change all this shit. Like, it just isn't working. Why can't you see it? And everybody else seems like you had mentioned, like happy with the dysfunction. And my skin is I can feel like, oh, it's starting again, and it's not that I'm intending anything to be destructive at all. It's actually a reformation in my brain. Like there's this amazing thing right here. We need to tweak it so it can be better. But I still find that kind of awkward and uncomfortable. And because often what maybe this is the manifesting generator combo that I am, that I've now stopped saying it so much because work ended up on my shoulders. And I have to manifest, and like getting other people to do stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, did I sign up for that? And then I'm the right angle cross of service. So that's very easy for me to slip into service. That's a big part of my wiring. So I still have that ambivalence about bringing that destructive or reformative thing to a situation. I guess I use energy medicine now to do it, because that's often that's a great way to put energy medicine and into that mindset, that it's just now I work with it internally as opposed to in groups. I don't know. I guess I'm not completely clear.
Do you do Reiki?
Sure. Yeah, I'm master Reiki in a couple different styles, but the modalities I use to do energy medicine are biofield tuning, where I modulate consciousness with a fork. Yeah, because your consciousness is outside of your body, and your body's
the vibrations.
And I do body intuitive, which marries medical intuition and Chinese medicine with Western science, and brings the system back online. It's really cool. Like, it's pretty crazy. We're doing work now on the human connectome in the brain, and using medicine to do that work too. So I got the coolest gig.